The cold wind howled across the dead planet Dot. There was no sun in the sky, only dark clouds and falling snow. The land was white, empty, and silent. It looked like everything had died long ago, but in the middle of that freezing storm, there was one small shape, a mother, her body shaking, sitting against a broken rock wall. Her arms were wrapped tightly around a bundle. That bundle was her child. She had no clothes left. She had burned them all to keep the fire alive. Now, there was only a small flame, barely alive, made from sticks, paper, and what was left of her clothing. The wind almost killed it every few seconds, but she protected it with her body, letting the fire take the heat from her. The child in her arms cried softly. He was weak. His skin was turning blue. His breath was slow. The mother whispered, "Just a little longer, my baby. Someone will come. Someone must come." But she didn't believe her own words. They had been hiding for days. After their escape from the slave ship, she had run through snow and rock to save her son. Her feet bled. Her bones ached. Her stomach screamed from hunger. But all that mattered was keeping him alive. She had carried him through a frozen canyon, across broken bridges, and into this tiny corner of safety. There was no food, no tools, no signal, nothing, just cold. Endless cold. She looked down at her son. He was sleeping now, wrapped in what used to be her cloak. The fire crackled, but it was dying. She leaned forward and blew on it with the little strength she had left. Suddenly, she coughed. Her chest hurt. Her lips were cracked. She tasted blood. She had nothing more to burn. No hope left, she thought. Maybe she should lie down, close her eyes, let the snow take her. Her child would sleep, and maybe they would go together, peacefully. She pulled the child closer and kissed his forehead. A tear ran down her face, then crunch. Her ears twitched. A sound, crunch, crunch, crunch. Footsteps. Her heart jumped. Was it a soldier? A slave hunter? A wild beast? She turned her head and tried to look through the storm. A shape moved through the snow. Tall, wide, covered in dark clothing, heavy boots, a strange metal pack on the back. The shape stopped when it saw her. Her instinct screamed, "Protect the child. Don't trust anyone." But she was too weak to move. The shape slowly walked closer. Snow crunched beneath his boots. Then he spoke. "You're alive?" The voice was deep, rough, but not angry, not cruel. She blinked. The language was not hers, but the voice, it felt strange, like someone trying to help. The figure knelt down. She saw the face now, part of it. A human, a man, maybe in his 30s. His eyes looked serious but not cold. He looked at the baby in her arms, then at the fire, then at her. "Your clothes," he muttered. "You burned them?" She didn't answer. He slowly took off his large black jacket. Without a word, he leaned forward and gently wrapped it around her shoulders. She flinched. She thought maybe it was a trick. Maybe he would hurt her. But then he opened a small bag and pulled out something soft. Food. A wrapped bar. He held it out to her. "Eat," he said. "You'll die if you don't." She stared at the bar. Her hands trembled. Then, with shaking fingers, she took it. Her lips opened, and she bit it slowly. Her eyes filled with tears, warmth, food, kindness. She had not felt these things in years. He looked around, then said, "You can't stay here. Come with me. I have a tent, heat, supplies." She wanted to believe him, but no one had ever helped her before. Still, she had no choice. Her baby needed to live. The man reached into his pack and took out a small scanner. It beeped once. He looked up. "You're not far from where I crashed. I've been surviving alone. I can help you, if you let me." She looked at her child. His tiny chest moved up and down slowly. Then she looked at the human. "Why help?" she asked, using her little knowledge of human words. He looked at the baby again and said, Because no child should die cold, and no mother should burn her clothes to keep him alive. That was the first time she truly saw him not as a human, but as someone with a heart. A strong wind blew again, trying to kill the fire. The human bent forward and cupped his hands over it, protecting the flame, just like she had done. She nodded, and together, they began to walk one step into the snow, one step toward hope. She had not felt warmth in so long. She forgot what safety felt like. As the human walked ahead, clearing a path through the snow, the alien mother followed, weak, barefoot, and cold, with her baby held tight in her arms. But now she wore his thick jacket, and it still held his body heat. It smelled like smoke. And something else, something alive. Each step felt like walking through water. Her legs were heavy, but she didn't stop. The human turned back often, making sure she hadn't fallen behind. He said nothing more. He didn't ask her name. He didn't touch her. He didn't look at her with fear or disgust like others had. He just walked and protected the flame of hope. Finally, after what felt like an hour, they reached a small rocky hill. Behind it stood a large black tent, half covered by snow. A tall antenna poked out from the top, blinking red. The human pulled the flap open. "Go inside, it's warm." She hesitated. Her people told her humans were dangerous, cold, violent, selfish. But this one had given her his only coat and food. She stepped in. Instant warmth kissed her frozen skin. A small heater hummed in the corner. There were thick blankets, a folded sleeping mat, and strange boxes full of supplies. The smell inside was strange, but not bad. Clean, dry. She sat down slowly, still holding her child. The human followed, then zipped the tent closed. "I'll heat water," he said, opening a silver container. "You need it." She watched him move. His hands were fast, practiced. He set up a small heater and placed a silver pot on it. She looked down at her baby. He was still breathing, but too quiet. The human noticed. "May I check him?" he asked. She didn't answer, but loosened the wrap. He came close, pulled off his gloves, and gently touched the child's face. "Fever. He's dehydrated. He needs warm fluid, soft food, and rest." He opened another box and took out a soft blue gel pack. "This is medical-grade nutrition. I've used it myself. Can he swallow?" She nodded weakly. He placed the pack near the heater to warm it. She stared at him. He wasn't like the others she had seen. He didn't talk too much. He didn't ask for anything. He just did what needed to be done. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why? Help us." The human sat down and thought for a moment. Then he said softly, "I had a little sister. She died during the winter back on Earth. We were too poor to afford heat. I still remember her last words. 'I'm cold, big brother.' I promised myself I'd never let another child freeze again." Her eyes widened, recognized pain. She lowered her head. "I ran away," she whispered. "My people said I broke the law. I chose my child over the tribe." He nodded. "Then you chose right." The tent was silent for a moment, only the hum of the heater between them. Suddenly, outside, a loud howl echoed through the night air. She jumped, eyes wide. The human stood quickly, picked up a strange black weapon, and walked to the flap. "What was that?" she asked. "Something big," he said. "Something hunting." He peeked outside, scanning the darkness. "Will it come here?" "Probably," he said honestly. "Fire and warmth attract predators on this planet." She hugged her child tighter. "Then we'll die." He looked back at her and said something that froze her heart in a new way. "No, not while I'm alive." He dropped his bag and started setting up traps near the flap. He pulled wires, sensors, and small blinking lights. From the boxes, she watched, unsure whether to feel scared or safe. The human moved like a soldier. Fast, calm, ready. When he was done, he returned to the heater, picked up the now warm gel pack, and knelt before her. Feed him this, he said, handing it to her. Then rest. I'll watch the night. She took the pack, her hands shaking. Your name? She asked. He smiled a little. Jackson, and you? She paused, then said, Rayleigh. He nodded. Nice to meet you, Rayleigh. The child stirred, opened his eyes, and looked up at Jackson. Jackson smiled and whispered, Hey, little guy, you're safe now. And for the first time in many days, Rayleigh believed it might be true. Asterisk. The baby laughed just once before the scream of something wild broke the night. Jackson froze. Rayleigh held her child tightly, every muscle in her body tense. The little warmth and peace they had felt was gone in a second. Outside the tent, something heavy moved through the snow. Slow, big, breathing loud. Not wind, not storm, something alive. Something hunting. Jackson didn't speak. He grabbed his black rifle and motioned for Rayleigh to stay silent. She nodded once. Her child, sensing the fear, went still in her arms. Then came the sound again. Hsh, thump, hsh. Thump. It was circling them. Jackson crawled to the tent flap. He opened it just a crack and looked out. What he saw made his heart tighten. It was a claw beast. He had read about them in survival briefings. 10 feet tall, 6 legs, yellow eyes, and breath like smoke. They hunted the sick and the weak. The cold made them faster. And right now, it was sniffing their scent. It's tracking the baby's fever, Jackson whispered to himself. He looked back at Ray. Lee. She was shaking. Not from cold, but from fear. Not for herself, but for her child, he thought. She already gave everything to keep that child alive. I can't let it end here. Jackson pulled a metal disc from his bag, a sound grenade. Not deadly, but loud enough to distract. He looked at Rayleigh and whispered, Hold your child, no matter what. Don't come outside. Then he slipped out the back of the tent. Snow swallowed his body instantly. He crouched low, boots barely making sound, moving through the dark like a ghost. The claw beast turned its head toward the tent again. Closer. It growled a deep, awful sound that made Rayleigh hold her baby tighter. Inside, she whispered, Please, not now. Not after we found warmth. Then suddenly, boom! A flash of blue light and a blast of sound shook the air. The claw beast screamed in pain and confusion. Rayleigh's ears rang. Her child cried. She opened the flap slightly and saw Jackson running full speed through the snow, shouting, Hey! Ugly! Over here! The beast turned toward him. He raised his rifle and fired. Bang! Bang! Sparks flew off its thick hide. The beast roared and charged after him. Rayleigh gasped. He's leading it away from us. On purpose. Jackson ducked behind a broken tree. Stump as the creature lunged past him. He turned and fired again, this time into its eye. Splat. The beast screamed. Then it swiped its claw, catching Jackson in the side and throwing him into the snow. No! Rayleigh screamed from the tent. She stood, wrapped her baby tightly in a blanket, and ran out. The cold bit her instantly, but she didn't care. She followed the trail of blood in the snow. She found him behind the tree, breathing hard, bleeding from his side, but alive. The beast was down. Not dead, but barely moving. Its eye was gone. Its leg was shattered. Jackson looked up at her and smiled weakly. Told you not to come out. You're hurt, she said, voice shaking. He coughed. Just scratched. She helped him sit up. You saved us. I told you, he said. I don't let kids freeze or get eaten. The snow started falling harder again. Together, they limped back to the tent. Inside, Rayleigh used her few herbal leaves to press against his wound. He winced but smiled. You're good at this. I had to learn, she said. No one else cared for us. Jackson looked at her, not as an alien, not as a refugee, but as a mother. Strong, brave, and kind. You shouldn't have come outside, he said. She looked at him and whispered, You shouldn't have fought that beast alone. The heater hummed beside them. The child slept again. Silence fell. But this time, it wasn't cold. It was peaceful. Jackson leaned back inside. Well, now you owe me. Rayleigh raised an eyebrow. Owe you? He grinned. Yeah, tomorrow you make the breakfast. She stared at him. Then smiled for the first time. In many seasons, the snow had stopped falling. But the human was shaking. Rayleigh noticed it first. Jackson sat near the heater, trying to clean his wound with a piece of cloth. His hands were steady, but his face was pale. His breathing was too fast. He smiled and said, "It's not that bad." But she had seen that look before. She had seen it on her people, right before they died of infection. Rayleigh gently placed her child on the sleeping pad and crawled over to Jackson. She pulled back the blood-stained fabric on his side. The wound wasn't just a scratch. It was deep, red, swollen, and hot. "You have fever," she whispered. "The cut is turning bad." "I've had worse," he muttered. "Just need sleep." But his eyes were dull. His body trembled. Rayleigh looked through his supplies. Some bandages, dried tools, a few pain pills, but no real medicine. No antibiotics. No anti-toxins. And on this cold, empty planet, infection meant death. Her hands shook as she looked at him. He saved my child. He gave us warmth. He risked his life. For strangers, she stood suddenly. "What are you doing?" he asked, confused. She grabbed a small blanket and wrapped it around herself. "I'm going out," she said, "to find frostroot." Jackson blinked. "You'll freeze." "I know where it grows, in caves. South side. I saw them when we escaped." "The slavers. You're weak. You'll collapse." She looked him dead in the eye. "You saved us. Let me save you now." Before he could argue, she opened the flap and stepped out into the cold. The snow had frozen into sharp, crunchy ice. The air was biting. Her feet stung with every step, but Rayleigh didn't stop. She remembered the path, the frozen hills, the fainty shadow of the tall rocks where healing roots grew, roots her mother once used to treat fever. She moved fast, holding a stick for balance. Her breath came out like fog. Her body was thin. Her legs were sore, but in her heart was fire. She would not let him die. Not after all he had done. She reached the first cave. It was dark, cold, full of broken stone. She crawled in, her eyes adjusted. Slowly, and there it was, frostroot, glowing faintly blue, covered in ice crystals. She smiled. Then she heard a growl. Behind her, near the cave entrance, stood a small scavenger beast, sharp claws, hungry eyes. It hissed. She grabbed a rock and threw it. "Go away." The beast lunged. Rayleigh screamed and swung her stick. A quick fight. She fell. Her arm got scratched. But the beast ran off. She didn't care. Her hands were bleeding, but she grabbed as many roots as she could, wrapped them in her cloth, and ran back. Jackson was half asleep when she returned. His skin was pale, his lips dry. But when the flap opened and she dropped inside, covered in snow and blood, he opened his eyes weakly. "You came back." "I told you," she said, breathless. "It's my turn now." She crushed the roots and mixed them with heated water. She poured the mixture into his mouth little by little. He drank slowly. Groaning, Rayleigh wiped his forehead, changed his bandage, and sat beside him all night. She didn't sleep. She just watched him breathe. Her baby curled beside her. In 4. The first time, she wasn't thinking about death. She was hoping for morning. When the sun finally broke through the clouds the next day, it touched Jackson's face. He opened his eyes. Clearer, brighter. His fever was down. Rayleigh gasped. "You're awake." He looked around, confused. "Did you do all this?" She smiled. "Yes, you almost died." He laughed weakly. "I told you, I've had worse." She hit his arm softly. "Foolish human," he grinned. "Strong alien." They sat in silence for a while, just breathing the warm air. Inside the tent, Jackson finally asked, "Why did you go through all that?" "For me," she looked at him and said softly, "because now I know, not all humans are monsters. And not all aliens are weak." The radio crackled and her heart froze. Jackson had just finished eating a small energy bar when the sound burst from his old comms unit. He turned quickly, eyes wide. The voice on the other end was broken by static, but still clear enough. "This is Commander Doyle. If anyone from Bravo Squad hears this, respond." Jackson grabbed the mic. "Doyle, this is Sergeant Jackson, alive and holding out in Sector 9K. Repeat, alive." There was a long silence. Then, "Sergeant, you survived? We're heading your way. Sit tight." He dropped the mic and let out a laugh. "I can't believe it. My team is coming." But Rayleigh didn't smile. Her hands tightened around her child. "Your team, what will they do to us?" Jackson looked at her and paused. His smile faded. "They'll be cautious, yes," he admitted. "Maybe scared, but I'll talk to them. I'll explain everything." She shook her head. "They'll see me and see a threat. They'll see my child and see a mistake." She stood up. "Maybe we should leave." Jackson reached out and touched her hand gently. "No, not again. You've run enough. You belong somewhere too." Her voice cracked. "My own people threw me out, said I was cursed, that my child made me weak." Jackson looked into her eyes. "Then your people were wrong." She sat beside him again. "Do you really believe that?" "I do," he said firmly. "You survived. You protected your baby with nothing but your body and your fire. That's not weakness. That's strength." She didn't reply, but her eyes watered. Hours passed. The sky cleared. Jackson helped patch up the tent and made a small fire outside. With melted fuel, they waited together. The baby played with a spoon, giggling softly. And for a brief moment, it felt like family. Then they heard it. Engines. In the sky. A dot grew larger, a dropship. Rayleigh stood, holding her baby close. Jackson placed a hand on her shoulder. "Stay behind me. Let me speak first." The ship landed with a loud roar of dust and snow. The hatch opened. 5 soldiers in dark armor stepped out, guns raised, scanning the area. One shouted, "Sergeant Jackson, step forward." He did. They ran to him, saluting and patting his back. "We thought you were dead." "I almost was," Jackson said. "But I wasn't alone." The men froze. "What?" "There's someone I want you to meet." He turned and motioned, slowly. Rayleigh stepped forward, arms wrapped tight around her baby. The soldiers immediately raised their rifles. "Hostile alien." "Stay back." "No," Jackson shouted, stepping between them. "Lower your weapons." "She's one of them. She's a mother," Jackson growled. "She saved my life. And I saved hers. She's not a threat." The commander stepped forward, scanning Rayleigh from head to toe. "That's an escaped alien from the slave fleet." "She was a slave," Jackson said, "but she's free now." "And her child? Just a child." The commander looked at the baby. The tiny creature looked back, innocent, eyes wide. "I can't make that call, Jackson," he said. "You know the rules. We don't take in unregistered aliens." Jackson's jaw tightened. "Then register her. Make a new rule." Silence. Finally the commander sighed. "It's not up to me. But I'll report what I saw. And if you trust her, we'll take her in for now." Rayleigh stood frozen. But Jackson turned to her and said softly, "Come on, it's okay now." She stepped forward, heart pounding. The baby reached out a hand toward one of the soldiers and smiled. The soldier stared. Then slowly lowered his weapon. Inside the dropship, Rayleigh sat with her child in her lap, wrapped in a warm blanket. Jackson sat beside her, bruised but smiling. "You're safe now," he whispered. She looked around at the others, still watching her, still unsure. But for once, No one was pushing her away. She closed her eyes and whispered, "This feels like a team," Jackson chuckled. "It is, and you're one of us now." Asterisk. The silence inside the dropship was heavier than the snow outside. No one spoke. Rayleigh sat in the corner, holding her baby tightly. The human soldiers sat across from her, watching, some with suspicion, some with fear. One of them, a tall man with a scar over his eye, muttered, "She's too quiet." Another whispered, "What if she's just waiting to strike?" Jackson, sitting between them, stood up. "That's enough," he said firmly. "She's a mother, not a spy." She kept her baby alive with fire made from her own clothes. The soldier with the scar scoffed. "That's just survival. Doesn't make her one of us." Jackson stepped forward. "She's not one of us. She's better. While we were hunting each other, she was fighting the cold with nothing but hope." The others looked away. Rayleigh didn't say anything. She just held her baby closer and stared at the floor. She could hear every word. She didn't understand every sentence, but she felt their fear. She had felt it before when her own people pushed her out, calling her cursed. She thought this time would be different, but maybe nowhere would ever be safe. Later, they stopped at a temporary base camp in a snowy valley. A few tents had been set up. A fire burned in the middle. Jackson brought Rayleigh a warm drink. She took it quietly, thanked him, and looked away. He sat beside her. "You're doing better," he said. "I'm not sure," she whispered. "Your people don't want me here." Jackson nodded slowly. "Some of them don't, yet. Maybe I should leave," she said. "You've done enough." He looked at her with hard eyes. "You think I fought that beast? Or stood between you and guns just for you to walk away?" She didn't reply. Then the baby stirred and reached up, small arms grabbing at Jackson's coat. Jackson chuckled and picked him up. "Hey, little guy, you still trust me, huh?" The baby smiled and touched Jackson's beard with tiny fingers. Rayleigh watched, heart aching. She had feared humans once, but now her son loved one. The next morning, things got worse. A new officer arrived from command. He walked straight up to Jackson's tent and shouted, "I was told you're sheltering a Class 5 alien female with a child. Is that true?" "Yes," Jackson sighed, standing tall. "She's not a threat. She's a survivor." The officer turned toward Rayleigh. "We don't take in strays. This is a military base, not an orphan shelter." Rayleigh stepped back. Her child whimpered. "She's coming with us," Jackson said. "No, she's not," the officer snapped. "If you take one alien in, others will follow." "Then what? We're babysitters now?" The argument grew louder. Soldiers gathered around. Some nodded. Some looked down. Then something happened. The baby wiggled free from Rayleigh's arms, crawled forward on shaky feet, and walked straight toward the angry officer. The man froze. The baby stood in front of him, looked up, and raised his arms. Whole camp went silent. Then without a sound the baby hugged. The man's leg. Soft, innocent, pure. The officer didn't move. Then slowly, his hands relaxed. He looked down, confused. Jackson smiled. "Sir, he doesn't see an enemy. He just sees warmth." The officer blinked, looked around. Every soldier was watching. Something changed in the air. He bent down and picked up the child. "He's not afraid of me," the officer said softly. "No," Jackson replied, "because hate is taught. He hasn't learned it yet." That night, Rayleigh sat near the fire. One of the soldiers brought her soup. Another gave the baby a small toy. No one said, "Sorry," but actions spoke louder than words. Jackson sat beside her again. "I told you," he said, smiling. "One small moment can change everything." Rayleigh looked around, her eyes misty. "I never thought humans could care." "Not all do," he admitted, "but the ones who matter, they do." She looked at her child now sleeping peacefully in her arms. And whispered, "Maybe we finally found our home." Her story was once whispered in fear. Now it was told with pride. Weeks had passed since Rayleigh first stepped inside that cold human tent. Back then, she was shaking, barefoot, and holding a dying child in her arms. Now, she stood tall in a warm jacket, her baby wrapped safely at her side, no longer crying. No longer cold. The human base had changed too. People smiled when they saw her. They waved when her child laughed. Children from Earth ran beside him, calling him Little Flame, because his laughter was always warm. And her, they now called her something new, War Mother. One early morning, Rayleigh stood by the training yard, watching soldiers run drills. Jackson walked over, holding 2 hot drinks. "You know," he said, "you're kind of famous now." She smiled. "I don't understand why. I only did what any mother would do." "That's exactly why," he replied. "They see how far a mother will go. And it humbles them." He handed her a drink. She held it, feeling the warmth. "Do they still talk about me in whispers?" she asked softly. "Not anymore," he said. "Now they talk loud, with respect." She looked around. Soldiers nodded at her. One waved. Another was teaching her child how to stack rocks. Rayleigh took a deep breath. It didn't feel like survival anymore. It felt like belonging. Later that day, Commander Doyle called everyone to the main hall. Humans and aliens stood side by side, some unsure, some still adjusting. Jackson and Rayleigh stood near the front. Doyle cleared his throat. "I have orders from Central Command. Effective today, all alien civilians rescued from hostile zones will be registered under Human Protection Protocol 7. They will be given shelter, food, and safety without chains." A quiet murmur went through the crowd. "And this change," Doyle added, "is thanks to one woman." He looked at Rayleigh. She crossed the ice for her child. She faced hunger, beasts, and human fear, and still gave kindness. She showed us something stronger than weapons, compassion. He motioned for her to step forward. Rayleigh's heart pounded. She didn't like the attention, but when she saw her child smile and clap his hands, she stepped forward slowly. The room clapped. And Jackson leaned over and whispered, "Told you, legend." That night, under the stars, Rayleigh sat beside the fire again. But this time, she wasn't alone. There were others now, alien mothers, small alien children, humans laughing beside them, sharing food, stories, and warmth. Jackson sat beside her. As always, he looked at her with pride. "You didn't just survive. You changed things." She looked at him and said, "I was only trying to save my child, and you ended up saving others too." She looked up at the stars. "Maybe," she whispered, "this is what my people feared. Not because I was weak, but because I was different." Jackson smiled. "Different is good. Different is how things begin." She looked at her son, who was now fast asleep under a soldier's coat, and she whispered, "Then let this be a beginning. In the days to come, more would arrive. More would be saved. They would hear the story of a mother who burned her last clothes in the snow, who trusted a human when she had no reason to, who walked into a frozen wasteland and came out carrying hope. They would ask, "Is it true?" And someone would always say, "Yes, I was there. I saw her." The War Mother.